but by choice. And definitely, not having more than 2 children per couple, because that way at least you keep things stable. And so people ask, well, how do we do it? And first, the easiest one, is the lowest hanging fruit is what? Think about it, on a tax return. People can make a deduction for, having an extra child, right?
All right, guys, Thomas Kaenzig here today. We're going to talk about the origins of humanity, aliens, UFOs, and all that sort of stuff. Thanks for coming on, man.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, let's kick it from the top. So origins of humanity. It's a debated topic, right?
Yes. Well, there's 2 classical explanations, right? The idea of random evolution, or the idea of an almighty God sitting on a cloud somewhere. The Raelian movement proposes a 3rd explanation, saying that life on Earth was created by extraterrestrials who came about 25,000 years ago to this planet, and who created life here scientifically. And those extraterrestrials were mistaken for gods. If you look at all the ancient texts, we're here in the Abrahamic world, right, where the Bible is widespread. You take the Bible in the ancient Hebrew version. It says in Genesis, Elohim created man in their image. Elohim did this. Elohim did this. The word actually Elohim was mistranslated, unfortunately, in English into the word God, which is probably the biggest lie. I always call it like that, the biggest lie on this planet. They made out of a plural a singular, because the word Elohim literally translated actually means those who came from the sky. And if you look around the planet, other than the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, pretty much all the other religions, legends already talk about a plurality of beings. So that this idea of a monotheism is really doesn't exist much. You go to Africa. The legends there, they talk about little geniuses who came from the sky. You go to India, where they talk about the gods, plural, flying around in the Vihamas, having names, behaving like us. There's Shiva, for example, right?
Yeah.
You go to China, there's a story of Fuxi, Nuwa, creating life. We have in Chinese mythology, you probably saw a few years ago, the Chinese, they put a moon lander on the moon, and they named it Chang'e. Chang'e was a Chinese goddess who supposedly lived on the moon. So, this is obviously, nowadays in the age of science, we can understand this. Well, yeah, it was an extraterrestrial, right? We go here. Obviously, before Christianity came to this land, the natives, in their stories and their legends, they talk about the great forefathers who created life. So there's always been pretty much in all the
Greek gods too.
The Greeks, everywhere you go, other than in the say the Abrahamic religions, it's always been a multitude of gods. And of course, we have to understand, primitive people at the time, when they saw beings coming from the sky, yes, they wow, they had God, they described them as godlike figures, because you take even go back 500 years and you do a video call with somebody who's up in Denver, and they would think, wow, this is magic here. You have godlike power. So think about 1,000 years ago, any technology was deified. And then we have to read all the ancient texts, really try to read the ancient texts with the eyes of somebody who has a scientific understanding.
Right.
You take, for example, Noah's Ark, right? It's in the Bible. How could this be just like a boat that floats in water? Well, how can you load up, from each animal? I mean, the female and the male. I mean, the lion's not going to eat the gazelle. I mean, you got to have a huge boat to start with, and how do you? This doesn't make sense. Now, if you in this stage of science and technology, with the understanding we have today, what if they just took one cell, and then you can clone the animal? So one cell, I'll take way less space, right? So if we can understand all these legends, the story of Jonas and the whale, right? He spent 3 days and 3 nights in a big fish. Explain that. How does that work? He's not going to come out alive after that. You spent 3 hours in a in a whale, and you're probably already half digested, right?
Yeah.
But what if it's a submarine? Okay, now this all makes sense, right? So, and that's really, so we have these extraterrestrial scientists who came here, created all forms of life, starting off with very primitive life forms, and then ultimately, as they say, as it's said in the Bible, humans in their image and their likeness.
Got it.
And so they stayed in touch with humanity by sending at different times prophets, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Joseph Smith, to mention one that is...
I don't know that one.
Was here in the Americas, right? So about a total of 40 prophets were sent to basically guide humanity to, how should I say, simply put, have more love for each other, live a harmonious life. And yes, that's really the role of a prophet. And now that we're in the age of science and understanding, the age of apocalypse, and the apocalypse doesn't, a lot of people, you talk about destruction. No, not at all. The word apocalypse comes from the Greek apocalypsis. It means revelation. This is this day and age that we're in right now, ever since the explosion of the first atomic bomb in Japan in 1945. And that's when the Elohim, our extraterrestrial creators, decided to send their last messenger, Rael, and they gave a mission to basically inform the whole planet about our extraterrestrial origin and build an embassy for them where they can officially be welcomed.
Wow. You just said a lot. I got a lot of questions, man.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So basically, from the start, you don't believe that evolution happened, right?
No. Actually, I became a Raelian, I would say it was simply a rational choice. Right? So when you always ask yourself, any scientific theory, any hypothesis, can you replicate it? Now, Miller and many other scientists for decades been sitting in front of some Earth and hoping something to happen, and nothing really comes out of it, right? So out of nothing, nothing's going to come. Now, what the Raelian philosophy is proposing is scientific, atheistic creationism, and that's what we are replicating today. I mean, there's scientists right now who, as we speak, there's probably tens of thousands of PhDs in labs who create life. We start off with very simple life forms. I think it was Craig Venter, somebody who created the first single-cell organism a few years ago. And one day, as scientists, we will, obviously we will evolve our techniques, yes, but one day there will be a scientist who will dream about creating a being in our image,
right?
Just like it was with us. And he may have to go to another planet because this may be too controversial.
Some people think cloning already exists.
Well, cloning is a... yes, I mean, Jesus was probably the first clone.
Jesus was cloned?
Well, think about it. He died on the cross and then he reappeared. How is that possible, right? So again, this is 2,000 years ago. You couldn't scientifically explain this, but nowadays we can understand it. I mean, all they had to do is, basically clone him in an advanced stage compared with what we know today, right? Cloning today is just creating a later born twin, if you want. So it has the same DNA, but obviously it would grow up at a different time, different conditioning, different programming. But so once you can create a being at an advanced adult stage, have you seen the movie The Fifth Element?
I haven't.
Where they basically this mysterious woman who helps them to save humanity ultimately, but they create her just kind of like in a machine, program it, and she's assembled, and she comes out as an adult body, right? You don't have to go through because right now a clone obviously is going to be born as a little baby and
takes years to develop.
Takes years, right? So when you can call it advanced growth process, master that, somebody comes out at an adult stage, and then the only thing you have to do is transfer personality and memory. And even that, we're getting close to that. So once we will be able to transfer personality memory and master some kind of advanced growth process, we will have eternal life.
Wow.
But it will not be for thousands of years, people have been talking about eternal life, but it was always mystified, right? And now, again,
immortality.
In this age of science and technology, we can understand all this. It's no longer a mystery. And that was announced a long time ago. It's in this age, the age of apocalypse, the mystery of God will be solved. That's what we're seeing. Science is basically, it's ultimately removing, killing the idea of some kind of an immaterial God, but explain to us that these were just beings who love us and who would like to come back. And that's why the Raelian movement has this goal to build an embassy for them.
It's exciting. I saw scientists clone the woolly mammoth. Did you see that?
They're working on that. Yeah, the problem, you have to get DNA that is still fully there, not just fragments of it. But yeah, maybe you're going to use an elephant as a surrogate, right? Because you still got to go for a pregnancy at this stage. So but all this is happening very fast. And always remember that the science fiction of yesterday is today's science, right?
Yeah.
And our science fiction today will be tomorrow's science. So.
We're going to live in Star Trek in 50 years.
Well, we're going to reach singularity very soon, and we will be able to travel if we don't kill ourselves. And that's really, mankind is right now at this stage where we will either use science and technology to create a better planet for everybody, the golden age that was announced a long time ago, or we will self-destruct. I mean, if you look at so many countries have, nuclear weapons, and if one starts to push a button, the other will respond, and it's going to be the end of all of us. So we're right at this. It's a very, I always tell people, we are living at the most exciting time. Think about it. Our ancestors were shoveling coal in mines,
right?
With really very little hope, right? We are, our generation, we are the ones who are going to, it's kind of the do or die moment, and we're going to enter this golden age, or we're going to disappear. So, of course, as Raelians, we are here to save humanity, and by bringing this message of, it's not only explaining, because a lot of people think, the Raelian philosophy, yes, okay, we come from ETs, okay, thanks. But it's not just the past. Yes, we bring a very rational explanation about the origin of life, but we have teachings about living in the present moment, and I think that's something that is the now, which is very important, and a lot of people have kind of lost track of it. They have stuck in the past or worry about a future that will never happen. Is not there. So it's very important to teach people to be in the now. And we have seminars on a regular basis worldwide where we teach meditation and help people to be in the present moment, to have to develop a happiness, a true happiness that comes from the inside.
Yeah.
And I think it is it's one of the biggest illusions on this planet, other than the idea of an almighty God. I think the other big illusion is the idea of separation. Just look at our language, right? People say, my girlfriend, my cat, my house, my car. There's always, I own this, it's me, separate. Whereas we're all just stardust. You and I, we ultimately, the matter that we're made of, it comes from the stars. And yes, we are alive right now. And when we die, we go back and to what we've always been part of that dust, but basically the organized matter becomes inorganized matter. But we're all just stardust, and people on this planet would understand that. Then that removes any basis for war and all the horrible things we're seeing nowadays on this planet. So that's the rational explanation about our past, the philosophy that helps us to live in the now, and at the same time, the Raelian philosophy it prepares us for a beautiful future. And we are very enthusiastic about what we see, happening with AI, and very soon we'll have a planet where people won't have to work anymore.
Wow.
Isn't that great? Because the Elohim, they didn't create us to get up, at the sound of an alarm clock at 6 a.m. to brush your teeth, go downstairs, eat your toast, get in the car, drive to work, clock in your 9 hours, go back, sit tired in front of the TV, and then go to bed and do that for 40 years and then retire, and maybe 5 years later have a heart attack. I mean, it's a nightmare if you think about it. But thanks to science and technology, we will very soon be able to create a society where full of abundance, everybody will be able to live and then enjoy themselves, create, meditate, do what they want to do, without having this huge burden of having to work and to clock in somewhere. So
that would be interesting. That's how the ancient civilizations operated, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's when you read about when they talk about the paradise and all these things. Of course, you don't want to have a society where you work and where there's money. And we're really close. We're getting really close to this moment.
Really?
And it's I mean, you can see it everywhere, right? I mean, you remember in simple ways. I mean, look at, you go to the store, okay?
Yeah.
You used to always talk to cashier with swipes the barcodes and gives you a total and you pay, right? And nowadays you can do self-checkout, right? You used to go to many malls, have to buy your thing. Now Amazon, we're in a warehouse, a robot assembles your order. Right now we still have a truck driver driving the truck. Within a couple of years, there won't be a truck driver anymore. It'd be just all done by robots. So we already see all that coming. And things are going to go very, very fast. I was talking to a friend of mine recently. He works in the field of AI. He's been a developer all his life. He told me he only writes 2% of his code himself. 98%, it's the AI is doing it.
That's crazy. Yeah. People develop their coding skills for years right now.
Yeah,
they go to college.
And the problem, that's why if you're a junior developer, it's very hard to find any job, because that's all done by computers and robots, and it's happening in literally all industries, thankfully. And so within a few years, we'll be able to really live in a leisure society, and that will also help to increase the happiness of people. Because think about it, if you got to worry about whether you can make ends meet at the end of the month, right? It's difficult to be fully awakened and in harmony. Right?
That's a big stressor for most families. That's financial. Yeah. You mentioned nuclear weapons earlier as a big threat. Also, do you think overpopulation is a threat to humanity?
Yes. I was born in 1973, and world population was around 4 billion. Now, 52 years later, we more than doubled.
Wow.
So that is really it is a huge issue for humanity, and that's one of the main pieces of advice the Elohim give us, that we really should. Of course, some people are saying all these crazy ideas about reducing population, not forcefully, but by choice, and definitely not having more than 2 children per couple, because that way at least you keep things stable. And some people ask, well, how do we do this? At first, I mean, the easiest one is the lowest hanging fruit is what? Think about it, on a tax return. People can make a deduction for, having an extra child, right? So you basically give an incentive. This is a crazy thing. In our society, in most countries, you're being given an incentive to have more children. In some countries, like in Europe, for example, in France, if you have 10, 12 kids, you can pretty much live off the government check.
Wow.
Just because and that's, so there's definitely, so there's easy things we can change. And I hope just if people are, aware of that and just you make a conscious decision. That's me personally. I do not have any children. I'm great for those who choose to have one, but please don't have more than 2 per couple.
Elon Musk, baby. He's got 14.
Elon Musk has many ideas. We agree. We agree with him, but definitely not as far as in terms of a number of children. Yeah.
Well, I see his point of view too, because he's trying to build legacy, and his kids maybe take the throne one day.
But if everybody has 10 plus, I mean, we just don't. We just don't have the resources, And think of it: if everybody on the planet would live like we do here, with 1-2 cars per household, I mean, the whole infrastructure, we just don't have the resources, right?
Probably not enough real estate, right?
And everything. I mean, it comes down to a simple, like ultimately, like water, food, and all that, right?
Yeah.
So, we will. In the US, if you look at the population density here, it's still somewhat because we have a lot of land. But you go to a place like Bangladesh, India, some of these places, you have one disruption even in the supply chain, and we have starvation and all that.
Dang.
So,
have you been over there?
I've been to a lot of Asian countries, but not Bangladesh.
Nice. Where is Raelian movement the biggest? Which country?
So the Raelian movement is really on all the continents. From here, U.S., Canada, Mexico, and in North America, in Europe, obviously in the French-speaking countries, because Rael, is French originally, and so he started spreading the message in French-speaking Europe. So in France, Switzerland, but we also have a lot of Raelians in Africa, in Western Africa, mainly Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Congo. Most Raelians are actually in Asia, in Japan.
Okay, Japan.
Yeah. And we have lots of members too in Korea. And it's not by surprise, because probably the Buddhist countries, Buddhism is basically, Raelianism is basically Buddhism without the mysticism. So it's an easy jump, right? An easy step from Buddhism to Raelianism. If you take the Abrahamic religions, right, it's very dogmatic, don't do this, don't do that, you're a sinner, and all that. The Buddhism is focused on the awakening of a person. And obviously so is Raelianism. It's to, be yourself and be happy, and not this this heavy luggage of, you're a sinner and kind of 10 Commandments style, don't do this kind of thing.
Yeah. So, a lot of shame there, right? With the sin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And they make you confess. Yeah, it's an interesting model, right?
It's a terrible model because it creates somebody who's, full of fear. Oh, did I do this right? And all that. So, but when a human being can grow up and how should I say, develop themselves the way they are, be themselves, as we like to say it, then that creates a totally different human being. A human being that is more loving, more happy, more harmonious, and through that will awaken brothers and sisters around himself.
I love it. Do you believe in the afterlife, like heaven and hell?
So the Elohim do recreate on the planet of Eternals those human beings who have done a lot of positive for humanity. All the prophets of old are there.
So karma.
Well, no, it's very important. It's a scientific recreation. So with somebody's DNA and this what we call, as we talked before, about the advanced growth process and the memory transfer, they can recreate. So if let's say you died in a car accident, and Sean, hopefully you've done a lot of positive and good for humanity. They would recreate you on the planet of Eternals, but it's a scientific recreation.
Okay.
But it was talked about, as you say, all the religions of the past, right? They talk about this paradise, but it was obviously mystified again due to lack of scientific understanding. But it's simply the planet of Eternals, what people call the paradise in the past, is simply a place of leisure, blossoming, and awakening. Yes.
Interesting. Do you think there's a lot of misunderstanding around Jesus and Moses?
Well, yeah. I mean, they obviously they brought they were prophets of the Elohim, but we misunderstood, I think, many things they said. The problem was, think about nowadays, Rael, the last prophet of Elohim, he's here in the day and age of science. We can record him. So whatever he said, we can show it. There's all these videos. You go on our website, rael.org, and you can click, look at all the videos, everything he says, right? So it's all documented. The problem with the prophets of old, there was no, what they were teaching, that was actually written down years, decades later, not necessarily by the people who were actually a firsthand witness. So things get totally transformed. If you look at Jesus, he was, speaking about love and compassion. I don't see that in the Catholic Church. Look at what the horrors they've done over centuries. The Crusades, the burning of the witches. That's not, Jesus didn't want that. Jesus never. That's so we have to make a difference between the prophet and his teachings at the time and versus the organizations that came out of it.
Yeah. It's like that game Telephone. Did you play that growing up?
Where like you have 10 people and you end up, exactly. You somebody says something to somebody else and then 10 people later, right? It's totally different. Exactly.
Totally different.
Totally, yes. And that's why I feel so, how should I say, privileged to be alive at this day and age where we have a living prophet. We can actually see exactly what he says. It's all recorded, and there's no, you can't betray. I would say that, the prophet cannot be betrayed anymore. Whereas in the past, yes, unfortunately, many prophets their teachings were betrayed.
Yeah, a lot of people label themselves as prophets. I never know who to believe.
First of all, we have to maybe demystify the term, right? The prophet, it comes from the Greek, the one who reveals. So a true prophet reveals something. And that he's ahead of time,
right?
And of course, it was said in the Bible too. There will be many false prophets, and that's what we're seeing today, right? In our day and age,
with social media, it's in their Instagram bio.
I always tell people, just make up your own mind, and that's really, as Raelians, we are never. No Raelian will want to convince anybody of something. We are here. I'm here today just to speak about the Raelian philosophy. I tell people, go on our website, rael.org, download this message, which comes from the stars, and make up your mind. If it speaks to you, great. If it doesn't, great. I want you to be happy. Right. I don't want everybody to become Raelian, not at all. I want people to be happy. And, check it out and then make up your own mind. That's what I always tell.
I like that, because a lot of modern religion is kind of culty,
Yes, and you have to believe and convince. You talk to any Raelian, I'm just, kind of looking back at myself. When I read the book, right, the message from the Elohim, when I was going through the pages, I found myself, I saw in it what I've always believed to be true. So there was nobody convinced me of anything. For me, it's like all the pieces of the puzzle came together. That's how I felt. That's, when you talk to Raelians, the true Raelians, they just saw themselves in that book, in that message. It resonated with them, and nobody gets convinced or anything.
Right.
Because the truth, either people recognize it or they don't. So there's no need. I'm not going to waste time trying to explain people something. Like when people ask me about, the Raelian philosophy, I just usually give them the flyer and say, here, check it out. There's a website. If I know more, call me. And
I love that. The Raelian symbol of infinity. Could you explain the meaning behind that?
Yes, it's the symbol that I'm wearing here today. It's the symbol of the Elohim. The symbol of infinity. It has two parts, right? You see the Star of David, which represents infinity in space, and you have the Swastika, which represents infinity in time. So what does that mean? So the infinity in space, you have a triangle pointing up and a triangle pointing down. The triangle pointing up represents the infinitely large, meaning we are on a planet that goes around the sun, right? And the sun circles around the center of a galaxy, in an infinite universe. That's on our level. Now, these galaxies and that we're all inside, they're on an infinitely larger level. They're inside an atom, a molecule of something infinitely larger, maybe a living human being. Maybe we are inside on an infinitely larger level. You're inside a person who right now interviews somebody else. And that to the infinite, it goes infinite. Same with the triangle pointing down, meaning that in my finger, for example, there's atoms in there. And in those particles inside, there's on an infinitely smaller level, there's galaxies with solar systems, planets, and maybe, for sure, in here, there's in one of them, there's people talking about infinity too, and that goes forever to the infinitely small. So that's the infinity in space, represented by the Star of David. Then we have the swastika. It represents infinity in time, meaning there's no beginning and no end. Everything is cyclical. And of course, the swastika has been in Western countries. It was tarnished, by Hitler abusing the symbol. But the swastika has been around for thousands of years.
Really?
And yeah, it only had positive connotations. I mean, the word swastika, it from the Sanskrit means little things associated with well-being. That's the etymological meaning of it, right? But even in the United States, until the 1920s, people got married. They often received a postcard with a swastika on it, wishing them well.
Wow.
You go like in San Francisco, the old Mint, the old U.S. Mint, and you can still see that today. There's a big swastika there. You remember President Garfield?
I don't actually.
Yeah, it's one of the.
I'm 28.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, it's well before my time too.
Yeah.
And
I heard of him.
And there's a memorial. Like most presidents, they have a memorial, right?
Yeah.
And in that building, there is on the floor there's swastikas.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so until Hitler abused an already existing symbol, it only had positive connotations, a very positive meaning, and specifically, and people sometimes ask, why do you use the swastika? Because blah blah blah. Well, because I don't want to give credit to this monster, and that's why the Raelian movement, we have this. We initiate an action called the Swastika Rehabilitation Day, where we basically in public spaces, explain to people the origin of the swastika, and actually want to take it back, because if you associated it with Hitler, you're only giving credit to this guy. So and he just abused a very beautiful symbol, and that's why it's very important to explain to people the beautiful original meaning, right? So and symbols can be abused by anybody. Think about it. You take the Ku Klux Klan is using the Christian cross, right?
Right.
I don't think Christians agree with the Klan's ideology, right? So
yeah.
So symbols can always be abused, but that's why it's so important to explain people the true and the original meaning.
Yeah, that's good to know. I didn't know it was around that long. Did you see what happened to Kanye West?
He actually posted our symbol.
Oh, he did?
Yes. He actually, the screenshot is our symbol.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know. We tried to reach out to him. I did send him a DM, but I never heard back, and I don't know what his intention was, and he sometimes seems to have I don't know.
Well, he tried selling the shirts with the swastika on Shopify, and then they banned him.
Yeah. But I don't know what what went through his mind when he posted that, or yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's what is the most important thing to remember. The swastika is it's actually a sacred symbol. You go to Asia, you have it all over the place. I mean, really? in Japan, you walk in Tokyo, like a manhole cover, there's a swastika on there. On a Tokyo map, all the temples, they're basically marked with a swastika. Like here, we marked the churches with a cross on the map, right?
Yeah.
So they marked them with a swastika on the on the maps.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So in that's why in Asia, people are totally, how should I say, they're all familiar, and for them this is a highly regarded sacred symbol. And so actually, I have to say, so it is here, because when I say here, we all came only a few hundred years ago here, but the original owners of the land here, the natives, for them the swastika is a very sacred and highly regarded symbol too.
That is interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of programming around the swastika, right? The Western culture, how it's evil. I remember growing up learning about it.
But that's why it's so important for us to restore and to rehabilitate it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing, and we have a website. It's proswastika, one word, .org.
Okay.
And you can see pictures of you can actually, we have a whole section there. It's and we have like for different continents, subsections for each continent, and there's one for Israel.
Really?
So even in Israel, the Ein Gedi synagogue on the ground, there's swastika.
What?
In Capernaum. Yeah, and one of the most holy sites for people, the Second Temple. So it's been a symbol for thousands of years as well. So and that's why we have this rehabilitate the swastika action, and
we'll link that below in the video.
Yeah.
I'm just now realizing a lot of the history I was taught growing up was incorrect, so I have to unlearn everything.
That's why I'm here.
Well, history is just programming in school.
Absolutely.
They teach it from one perspective.
Yeah. And that's why I think the beautiful thing, I think the day and age of the internet,
right?
I think that changed a lot, right? Because people still go to school and programmed by their parents, programmed to school. But with the internet, you can go and check things out yourself, look at different sources, different perspectives. Even if you look at the news, for example, I always look at very different news sources. I look at the mainstream U.S. media just to kind of see what's going on, but also look at RT, Russia Today. Do I know it's sponsored by the Russian government? Yes, of course I know that, but it gives me a different perspective. I look at Chinese news, South China Morning Post. So that helps you, and that's really I remember growing up, we just had the local newspapers delivered in your mailbox.
Yeah,
that's kind of
that's it, right?
And then the evening news on television, right? That's about it. But nowadays, you can really, thanks to the internet, you can make up your own mind, do your own research. And it's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, it makes you think, because when we paint certain countries and leaders as villains, it's like, are they actually villains, or are we just portraying them that way? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you dive into it, and usually they're decent people,
they're a human being like you and I, and they have different viewpoints. But I think ultimately, but that's why the message of the Elohim is so important, because it's a message that will unify the world.
Yeah.
Because once you understand, we were all created by the same people. It's not Allah and then or this, my God. No, it's the same people who they just send different prophets at different times.
Yeah,
teachers of love. That's how I call them. These, but when you understand, it's all from the same with the race. The Elohim on purpose created 7 original races on this planet. It's like a filter. Because think about it, would you give your inheritance to a civilization that is primitive, where they kill each other just because of a very slight difference in skin color?
No.
So that's why the Elohim originally created 7 different races. Now, of course, nowadays we've intermixed quite a bit already.
Yeah.
But that's just it's a beautiful filter. But once we can see that, it's all. And then, you speak about the conditioning. Yeah, for example, we just had a big campaign. Adam and Eve were black. We had a billboard campaign in Atlanta and actually worldwide in Africa too. And think about it for black people. They were brutally colonized by the white Christians who told them God is white, Jesus is white, all the angels are white.
Right.
You don't, how and I'm always wondering, how can you even be Christian as an African? Because
wouldn't make sense.
No, think about it. But the truth is very different, actually. The Elohim too, they have, they were originally seven different races.
Wow.
So
Adam and Eve were black?
Yes, that's what Rael revealed to us.
Holy crap. That's crazy.
And it destroys this, a very, how should I say, white-dominated culture. The world culture is very white-dominated.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful what we see right now. I mean, you look at, I don't know how much you follow the politics in Africa, but
not in Africa that much.
There's many countries there. They were, colonized by the French, and now they're kicking out the French, and that's beautiful. And I mean, think about Africa, but you look at the map of Africa today, right? It's do you see the lines? How there's straight lines for the countries?
Yeah,
that doesn't occur naturally. No, that's because in 1881, the colonizers got together and kind of split up the continent. Like you take a cake and just make pieces, and that's why there were a lot of wars, like the Hutu and the Tutsi in Rwanda, right? Mm-hmm. Because basically what happened, we put two or multiple tribes which lived separately for millennia, and we put them in the same country. So then they're fighting for power, of course. and so that's really that's because of the colonization by the white people. And Rael has been a strong advocate in Africa he calls for a cultural decolonization. Think about the people always wearing the suits, and it's a Western in Africa, beautiful dresses there, the original African dresses.
Wow.
So Rael called for a cultural decolonization, a religious one, of course, too, because they have beautiful religions and in Africa before Christianity and Islam came, economic as well, and in a political, and basically get rid of the colonizing country. And because think about it, they all had, like the French, they had their compounds there. They basically pretty much elect or make sure the right person gets elected as president. So, but all that is changing, and same on a global level. If you look at with China, the new rising power, it creates a for at least the last few decades, even centuries, let's say the Anglo-Saxon, the North American, European cultures have dominated the planet.
Yeah.
And now you can see, China coming. And
Dubai.
Yes. So it's a much more which is what humanity should be. We have different colors, different cultures, and just as we advocate for being yourself individually, then that applies to the cultures too. So instead of having kind of a white-dominated European culture worldwide, we see much more of a diversity, and that's diversity is what creates a beautiful humanity, right?
Yeah. When you look at a lot of wars, a lot of them seem orchestrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Of course, the winners of every war is always a military-industrial complex.
Yeah,
that's always remember that. And I mean, Eisenhower talked about it already, right? And I think even here in the news in the U.S., right? They say, "Oh, we sent billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine." What do you actually mean? I mean, you gave a lot of money to weapons manufacturers here that can make weapons so people there can kill each other. It's not, when I hear aid, I'm thinking, well, they're going to bring food or, I don't know, medical supplies. No, it's mainly here, making people here rich so they can sell their weapons over there.
Wow.
And many conflicts. I mean, they're always the winners. And that's why the Rain philosophy, probably the most important teaching is nothing justifies violence. Very important. Nothing justifies violence. If somebody comes and say, by killing this person, we will save 1,000 people, 10,000, don't do it. Because once you justify the killing of one person for something good, then why not 10? Why not 100?
Doesn't stop.
Why not 1,000? That's probably the most important teaching of the Elohim right now, is to nothing justifies violence. It's sad that we have to remind people of that, right? Even in the Old Testament, the do not kill, right? That's kind of, yes. And then we will truly be able to create a world of peace. And the Elohim, our creators, they really don't want to come into a world of violence. Think about it. Why would they want to come here? Why would somebody from another planet want to come here if people themselves kill each other just because they're of a different country, of a different race, different religion? It doesn't make sense. I mean, most of the astronauts, if you listen to them, they all have this beautiful testimony, right? When they look at the Earth from above, you don't see any border. There's no, USA, Mexico. No, there's no.
No lines.
That's all an illusion,
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I hope we could get there one day to world peace, because ever since I was a kid, I remember seeing war on the news or on social media now.
Yes, but let's always remember, I think you bring up an important point. And that's, I think, especially in the US, I was born in Switzerland, right? I've been here for 25 years. So I kind of look at it. I mean, I've lived here half my life, but I also have the view of an outsider. The problem in the United States, it's very much from an early stage on, you're being conditioned to the idea of war, or through war achieving something good. It starts in school. Think about it.
Yeah.
Every morning, Pledge of Allegiance,
right,
to a country, to a flag. That already. Oh yeah, I'm American. It's very, and me or us and the others. You already create a separation. The whole, and then you can, what is it? ROTC. Basically like this pre-military training. High school. Yeah. I mean, think about it. So there's very much this focus on and I see it. You go to a store, Home Depot. They have special parking for the veterans. So you glorify people who fought in the war.
Veteran discounts at almost every company. Yeah.
And so you create this idea that somebody who fought, is a good person. Right. And I travel a lot for business. And at the airport, I remember there's a soldier, 20 years old. He buys a sandwich. Somebody comes from behind and say, "Well, let me buy this for you. Thank you for your service." And I was standing there like, service? What service? What service are we talking about? Who is being served by a soldier going abroad and killing people? Who is being served? I mean, are you kidding me? So even the words, right? The whole language, we see that we talk about military service.
Yeah.
So we're constantly programmed. And then, of course, the movies, Hollywood's always a big conditioning tool, right? You see Top Gun, whatever. Yeah. Oh, they fight the bad guys. Who tells you these are bad people? They're in the faraway land and okay. One person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. Yeah, right?
They would call us terrorists for invading their land.
Exactly. So, and that's really, I think, you bring up an important point. I think it starts with education. So imagine at school, instead of doing this stupid Pledge of Allegiance every morning, what if all the kids would do a peace meditation? Imagine that. That it would totally change. The children would grow up in a very different way. They wouldn't want to fight anymore after that. Or instead of reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, how about reciting human rights? And that's really, if we could just, that's just a small example, but if we could replace the Pledge of Allegiance with something, peace-oriented, unifying, like meditation. I think we, as Raelians, we do on a regular basis peace meditations. And imagine every morning at school, all the kids, before the day starts, they do a peace meditation. We change the world very quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of good studies on meditation, how it helps the mind.
Yeah, one of the core teachings of the Elohim is to different meditation techniques that we teach. I personally meditate every day, usually in the morning upon awakening, and it helps you to connect with infinity and kind of set the tone for the day. A very harmonious, balanced way to start the day.
I love that. Thomas, it's been really interesting. Where can people find you and learn more about the movement?
Go on our website, rael.org, rael.org. Check it out, make up your own mind, and take from these messages whatever is for you. I hope it brings you happiness and joy, and whatever you choose. Either way, have a happy life.
I love it. Beautiful. Thanks for coming on. That was fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out the links below. I will see you next time.